Hello, I'm Michael Figura, Vice President of Operations at the Open Applications Group. And today we're going to be talking about SCORE, and in particular, we're going to be talking about code lists. So what are code lists? XML offers this handy feature called derivation by restriction, which is just a complicated way of saying that you can restrict a type or element by enforcing a further type or a list of allowed values. And so you can make an enumerated list and say that that particular type or element is only allowed to have those particular values. And so the simplest example that I can think of would be the days of the week, right? So unless you're using a calendar, somehow using a calendar other than the Greco-Roman / Gregorian calendar, you know that there are only seven possible values allowed for days of the week. So let's look at a real implementation that makes use of days of the week. So I'm going to go. Let's say hypothetically that we have a customer that only allows shipments Monday through Thursday. Why do they not allow shipments on Friday? Who knows? Maybe they do half days on Friday and they have too many boxes sitting on the loading dock until Monday. They get rained on or stolen, etc. So they only allow shipments Monday through Thursday. So let's go into code list and say create a code list. So I'm going to give it a name. I recommend that our members and implementers using SCORE do some sort of abbreviation at the beginning of their code list name. That helps to separate the custom code lists that are created by the organization from that which already ship with the OAGIS and SCORE product. So let's say if you were ADP, for instance, you would say ADP dash. If you were Archer Daniels Midland, you might say ADM. If you were Land O'Lakes, you might say LOL. Lockheed Martin would be LM, etc. Whatever works for your organization is best, but because this is custom created by me, I'm just going to say MF for Michael Figura, and I'm going to say allowed shipping days, right? And then I'll give it an agency ID. Now this one is a little confusing at first, but essentially what we're doing here is choosing from a list of allowed agencies that already are populated in the SCORE database. And we're going to scroll. Since we're not choosing an actual agency, we're just doing this ourselves, we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom and choose mutually defined, which is a fancy way of saying that I'm defining it here and making use of it somewhere else in another schema or one or more schemas. And so it's mutually defined. I'll give it a version control of 1 and leave the rest blank. And I'm going to finally check this box extensible. And I'm going to hit the create button. Now, there's my MF allowed shipping days, and it's still in editing mode. So let's go back into it and add our actual values. So I'll add Monday, Mon, and I'll add Tuesday, TUE for short, and I'll add Wednesday, and finally, Thursday, and hit add. And I will save it. And now, in order to make use of it, I have to publish it. So we're going to hit the publish button here. And this gives us a quick warning saying it can no longer be discarded once it's been published. It's forever. It's in the database for good. So now let's go to the SCORE homepage here where I've got process purchase order. Go into editing mode here. Come down into the data area and the purchase order line. And inside of here, we will see a fulfillment term node. So I'm going to extend this node and request a delivery date. I'm going to select this node. And now to make use of my custom schema or custom code list, I'm going to click code. And there's an enormous list of available code lists here that ship with our product. And we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom to these custom ones at the bottom here. And I'm going to say MF allowed shipping days and hit save. Now, when I express this BIE, we'll see that I have a custom code list at the bottom of the schema. So let's just generate it in XML. I'll hit generate. Keep it. And let's open this in VS Code. All right. So I have a custom type here, requested delivery date, and you can see that I've done restriction here. I've actually given it a special type, and that type is the UUID of my custom code list that I created in SCORE. And we can see that that's actually a reference pointer to this type defined here at the bottom of the schema. And you can see there are the allowed values Monday through Thursday. Now let's do a more advanced example where we do multiple code lists inside of a single type. So a good example for this that I usually think about is the goods movement, the reason or status for that movement. And so a goods movement or process move product, as we call it, has a status. And that status is allowed to have a reason code. So if we go down inside of here into our product line, we can see that we have a status node. And inside of this status node is a reason. So let's generate two different code lists, one for status and one for reason. And I'm going to give it the name mf-move product status. And I'm going to choose mutually defined again. Give it a version number 1 and make it extensible and hit create. Oh, I've already got that code list. So I'm going to call it number 2 and hit create. I'll jump back in here and add my values. So the status values are ready for shipping, ready for shipment, RFS. And then the second one will be ready for testing, RFT. The third value will be in transit, or IT. And the final status will be quarantined. Or Q. So now we can save this and publish it. We need one more code list, so I'll create my second one. And this code list will be for the reason for that status. So let's do mf status reason. I'll give it mutually defined again. Version 1, extensible, and create. And then we'll jump back in here and add our values. So the values are order fulfilled, OF, hazardous material, so we'll just call this hazmat, or HZ. And finally, it's a batch ingredient, or BI. And now we can save and publish this. Okay, now let's make use of these by going to our process move product schema. And we'll jump down into line. And here's our status. So the status has a type code, and we're going to assign that to our custom one here. I'm going to use the newly created process move product status 2 that I just created. And then finally, we'll give it a reason. And I'll use my newly created MF status reason code. And we've saved it. So now when I express this BIE, process move product, when I generate this schema and open it in VS Code, we'll see that we have two different custom types here. So inside of our status here, inside of line 24, we have a reason and a type code. So the type code points to the move product status 2, and the reason points to status reason content type. And both of those are defined down here at the bottom as their own separate types. And so we have ready for shipment, ready for testing, in transit, and quarantined. And order fulfilled, hazmat, and batch ingredient. You'll notice the short code doesn't show up here in the schema. Like ready for shipment, for instance, was RFS. That's just for internal use inside of SCORE. So before we wrap up here, let's talk about one more concept that gets a little bit more complicated and powerful, but it is a pretty exciting concept that I have seen our member organizations implement before. Let's go in here and to create a custom code list. Now, hypothetically, let's pretend that I want a custom code list that I want to implement inside my BIE or my schema, but I don't want the values, the restricted values in the enumerated type to be listed here and governed here in SCORE. I'd rather my data governance team maintain those values in their data governance tool of choice, like Calibra, for instance, is an example of a good data governance tool where you could do that. So you would generate the code list in Calibra or whatever tool you're using, add your values, and that tool will give you a unique identifier, and you can make that the name of the custom code list. So I would say MF dash data governance dash custom list, right? And then I could put the GUID, whatever GUID it gave me. So let's just make one up for now. All right, so you'd get some value, and you could place that value at the end of your name of your custom code list, and you can overwrite this one here as well, and then save that custom code list and go in and make use of it within your schema. And so you would have an empty custom code list or an empty type. And then at runtime, you could programmatically look at the instance XML document, determine that in the schema it has a custom coded type, and then go get that value based on your unique identifier and hit some sort of RESTful API on Calibra or whatever tool you're using and pull down the allowed values at runtime. And that's obviously extremely powerful because now your data governance team doesn't have to log into SCORE and maintain the custom code list there. They can just implement them inside of their custom data governance tool and then hand over the unique identifier and the name of that custom code list to the SCORE development team, who can implement it within the schemas. And you've got a very, very flexible solution now that you can dynamically change at runtime. That's it for today, and I will talk to you all in a month or so.